Have you ever wondered how much HP or DPS fused up units do inside of Squad Busters? Have you ever wondered, should I fuse up this unit? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be answering all of those questions. We're going to be starting it off with the green world characters. The first character up is the Barbarian, sitting at 4,900 HP and 264 damage per second. Every character inside of Squad Busters has 250% bonus HP when fused up. However, the damage per second is different for each character. The Barbarian's is 100% more damage per second than the regular form of the Barbarian. Do I recommend fusing up the Barbarian? I do. He's a really good character in the early game and then transitions well into the mid game and also in the late game as a semi-tank as well as doing damage. I do recommend you fuse up the Barbarian in your matches. Next up is the Goblin, sitting at 4,200 HP and 317 damage per second. He also has 100% more damage with his modifier on his DPS. He is a very, very fast unit, and this is kind of why I do not recommend fusing him up inside of your matches. If you do fuse up the Goblin, he's going to run first. Yes, he has a lot more HP, but the problem with the Goblin is he will get taken out very easily. Do I recommend other units? Yes, but if you do have a Goblin and you need to get a second one, you have to fuse him up. Otherwise, those two Goblins are going to get taken out in the mid game and you are not going to be in a good position. The Goblin, this is why it's really hard to get a Goblin in the early game because he struggles in the late game, but if you need to fuse him, he does do a lot of damage. Next up, we have Greg, sitting at 4,550 HP and 189 damage per second. Greg does absolutely no damage fused up. I do not recommend you fusing up Greg. The modifier on his attacks is 1x, so it is going to do 100% more damage when fused up. However, Greg just is not there. He does not do enough damage. He's just kind of just like a tank in the front lines, but he isn't even a good tank. Greg just is never worth it to fuse up. I do not recommend you fusing up Greg. If you're going to get him in the early game to get trees, okay. If you have to fuse him up, if you already have one and then you're going to get a second one, you could, but honestly, I would avoid fusing up Greg, and that's kind of why I do not like Greg in the early game. Our next character is Colt, sitting at 2625 HP, the second lowest hit points in all of Squad Busters when fused up, and also having 381 damage. The damage makes up for the lack in HP as he's an absolute monster. I do recommend you fusing up Colt as he does so much damage, especially with his Bullet Storm in the late game. Colt can carry you early, he can carry you in the mid game, and he can easily carry you into the late game of your matches. He has a 2x damage modifier, so he's just going to do 100% more damage when fused up. He is a very, very, very strong unit, and I do recommend highly that you fuse him. El Primo is our next character up here. El Primo has 9,800 HP, which is the third highest hit points in the game, way more than a Mega Chicken, believe it or not. He does 189 DPS, which is 2 times more than his regular form, which is kind of, I think every single one has been 2 times yet, but not all of them are, so do not worry. He doesn't do a lot of damage, but he makes up for it by having a ton of HP, and he also has an ability which is a stun. He's a massive unit that I do recommend each and every single person fuse up in your matches because he's going to be a huge tank in the front lines. The next character inside of Squad Busters fused up is going to be the Chicken, sitting at 3,500 HP, which is pretty decent, but pretty low on the HP here. But he does 364 DPS, which is massive fused up, and also with the chicklets, he does one of the most amount of damage inside of Squad Busters. Believe it or not, the chicken is really good, and if you have to get a chicken early, or if you have to get a couple of chickens because you need the boots, I do recommend fusing up the chicken. Yes, it's going to be a little bit rough, but it does do a lot of damage, and it could put out a ton of work. Do I super recommend the fusion for the chicken? No, but if you need to get one or two because you're low on blue turbos, I do recommend you fusing it up, and it will do you a ton of damage. Hopefully you have some battle healers and some Barbarian Kings to get more HP. Next up, we have the Medic. 3150 HP here and 244 DPS. Believe it or not, the Medic actually does 105% more damage than its classic form. So this is the first character so far that we've seen with a stronger multiplier on its attack. So on the DPS side, it's going to do 5% more damage than all of the other ones when it is fused up as far as the multiplier is concerned. The Medic is actually really strong. Do I recommend you fusing up the Medic? Maybe not, but the Medic, when fused up, is a super big tank. It heals up your entire army, and it is really good. The tank ability of the Medic is just standing still, healing up your entire squad. I do not recommend you fusing up the Medic. However, I do recommend you getting at least one Medic in your matches. Our next character is going to be Dynamite. 2800 HP, the third lowest hit points inside of Squad Busters, but he does do 118 DPS when fused up. The multiplier on this damage is actually going to be 105%, so just like the Medic, he is going to be doing a little bit of extra DPS when fused up, which is going to help him out a little bit. Is he good? No. Do I recommend you fusing him? No. Do I recommend you even getting him in your army? No. Try not to really get Dynamite right now. He is a little bit on the weak side. However, in the super late game, he's pretty okay, but honestly, I just would avoid getting Dynamite. Next up, we have the Hog Rider, sitting at 5250 HP, pretty middle of the pack here, hit points, just a little bit more than the Barbarian, and 291 DPS. The modifier on his DPS is going to be 105%, so he is going to do a little bit more because he is also a rare. He is one of the best characters inside of Squad Busters. I do recommend you fusing him just because you kind of got to get him anyway. You don't really need to fuse the Hog Rider. However, if you do fuse him, it is still going to be a pretty decent tank. It is still going to do a lot of damage, you know, more than the Barbarian fused up. So the Hog Rider definitely is something that you can fuse up. It's super fast. It makes your army move super quick. The turbo is great. And honestly, the Hog Rider is one of the best units inside of Squad Busters, and I do recommend you fusing him. The next character inside of Green World is going to be the Witch. 3500 HP, not that great, and 446 DPS. That is absolutely insane. One of the highest damage per seconds inside of all of Squad Busters. The modifier on this is going to be 110%, so this is going to be 10% more than those early characters and 5% even more than the characters that we just talked about that were rare. The Witch is one of the best characters inside of Squad Busters. I do recommend you fusing up the Witch whenever you can. It does a ton of damage. It gives you so much value in the late game. The Witch is one of those characters inside of Squad Busters that you pretty much always should take unless it's really a Barbarian King or an Archer Queen that you have to choose against. The Witch, super strong, and I do highly recommend you fuse up the Witch inside of Squad Busters. The next character is going to be the Barbarian King, sitting at 11,200 HP. By the way, he has the highest hit points in the entire game, even more than El Tigre, Mega El Tigre, and Mega Chicken. He has the highest HP. insane? You better believe it. 292 damage per second as well with an ability. The modifier here is 110%, so he is going to be able to do 110% more damage. The Barbarian King fused up 100%, do it each and every single time. The Barbarian King is one of the best characters inside of Squad Busters, especially with the Iron Fist. This Barbarian King being the highest hit points inside of the game, giving your melee characters more damage. Barbarian King, what more can I say? 100%. Try to fuse him up if you can. The last character inside of Green World is going to be the Archer Queen, sitting at 4,200 hit points, pretty squishy, the same HP as the Goblin, but doing 323 DPS. The modifier here for the Archer Queen is going to be 110% on the damage, so it is going to be a little bit more juice to fuse it up. Honestly, the Archer Queen is one of the strongest characters inside of Squad Busters. It does 1.5 million damage, especially in the late game, especially with its ability. I do recommend you always fusing up the Archer Queen or trying to get it as often as humanly possible. The Archer Queen is one of the strongest characters inside of Squad Busters, and anytime you have a chance to fuse up the Archer Queen, you should take it. Thank you guys so much for watching this YouTube video. We are going to be doing Desert World next with all of the fusions tomorrow. Until then, take it easy.